Sir, I'm here for the linguistic specialist recruitment. Amara Bennett's voice was calm and respectful. She stood in the fluorescent-lit processing room with 19 other recruits, all in civilian clothes, all standing at attention. General William Hartman stopped in front of her. His eyes scanned her worn sneakers, her faded jacket with the coffee stain. He pulled out his phone, held up a screen filled with Arabic text. "You want to be a translator?" He smirked. "Fine. Translate this, and the job is yours." He held the phone just out of comfortable reach, making her lean forward awkwardly. "Go on," he said, voice dripping with mockery. "Or can't you even read?" The officer beside him chuckled. Another one whispered, "This'll be good." A recruit in the back pulled out his phone, recording. Others exchanged glances, half smiling. No one said a word in her defense, but what happened next would wipe every smirk off their faces. And the general? He'd remember this moment for the rest of his career. 5 seconds of silence. Amara didn't reach for the phone. She didn't flinch. She simply looked at the screen from where she stood, then spoke. "Al-Jaysh Yabhath an Mutarjimin. Al-Ratib. Thalith Alaf-Dular Shahriyan." Her voice was clear, measured. "You're looking for translators. The pay is 3,000 monthly." The general's smirk froze. She continued. "But that's modern standard Arabic. The dialect markers suggest the writer was educated in Cairo, not the Gulf states. Probably a recruitment flyer from 2019, based on the salary figure and phrasing structure." The room went dead silent. An officer's mouth fell open. Another one's phone slipped in his hand. The recruit who'd been recording stopped, staring. The general blinked. "How did you—" "I can also tell you it was likely written by someone in their late 30s, Amara added, calm as still water. The formality level and word choice suggest military administrative background, not field operations. Captain Elena Torres, a sharp-eyed Latina woman in her 40s, stepped forward from the back of the room. She looked at Amara, then at the general. "Sir," Torres said carefully, "I think we need to note this recruit's file." The general's jaw tightened. His face had gone from amused to something else entirely. Surprised, maybe embarrassed. He lowered his phone. "What's your name?" he asked, quieter now. "Amara Bennett, sir." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned sharply toward Torres. "Get her tested, properly." As he walked away, the room slowly exhaled. Recruits whispered to each other. The officer who'd mocked her shoes looked down, suddenly fascinated by his clipboard. Captain Torres approached Amara, her expression unreadable. "Come with me," she said. Amara followed, her heart pounding but her face still. Behind her, she heard one recruit whisper to another, "Did that just happen?" At that moment, the room hadn't just gone quiet. It had been rewritten, because Amara Bennett had done something none of them expected. She'd been underestimated her whole life, and she'd learned to make her answers unforgettable. 30 minutes later, Amara sat in a small testing room. The air conditioning hummed. Burnt coffee smell drifted from the hallway. Her fingers tapped a silent rhythm on the table, a nervous habit she couldn't break. Across from her sat Captain Torres and a civilian woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled into a neat bun. "Amara, I'm Dr. Yuki Nakamura," the woman said gently. "I'm a linguist contractor. I'm going to show you phrases in several languages. If you don't know something, that's perfectly fine. Just—" "I'll know." Amara's voice was quiet but certain. Dr. Nakamura paused, then nodded. She set down a stack of laminated cards, each covered in different scripts. "All right, let's begin." The first card, Mandarin Chinese, simplified characters. Amara read it aloud, her pronunciation crisp, then translated. "The shipment arrives Tuesday at dawn." She paused. "This is a formal register, probably business correspondence, not casual speech." Dr. Nakamura's eyebrows lifted slightly. She flipped to the next card, Pashto. Amara didn't hesitate. She read it, then said, "This is asking about road conditions near a mountain pass. Kandahari dialect, southern Afghanistan. The speaker is likely from Kandahar province specifically, based on the vowel patterns." Captain Torres leaned forward in her chair. Next card, Russian, written in Cyrillic. Amara translated smoothly, then stopped. "There's a typo here. This word should have a soft sign, but it's missing. The sentence still makes sense, but it's grammatically incorrect. Dr. Nakamura removed her glasses, staring at the card. "You're right. I didn't even catch that." The next cards came faster. Farsi. Amara translated, then distinguished it from Dari. The verb conjugation here is Iranian Farsi, not Afghan Dari. Similar languages, different usage. Swahili. Tanzanian dialect, not Kenyan. You can tell from the way they structure greetings. Korean. She read the Hangul script aloud, translated, then added, "This uses formal honorifics. The speaker is addressing someone of higher social status." After the sixth card, Captain Torres set down her pen. "How is this possible? Where did you study?" Amara looked down at her hands. "I didn't. I listened." The room felt smaller suddenly. "I grew up in Chicago group homes," she said quietly. "Shared rooms with kids from everywhere. Bosnia, Somalia, Guatemala, Vietnam. The walls were thin. I couldn't sleep most nights, so I just listened." Her voice softened. "I learned their lullabies, their arguments, their prayers. I can still hear Mrs. Okoye singing Igbo to her daughter through the wall at 2 in the morning. That was my first real language lesson." Dr. Nakamura sat back in her chair. She was quiet for a moment, then spoke carefully. "Captain, I've worked in field linguistics for 20 years. I've tested hundreds of candidates." She gestured toward Amara. "I have never seen auditory retention like this. She's not just translating words. She's hearing context, dialect, intent. That's not something you can teach." Captain Torres wrote something in her notepad, then looked up. "Amara, wait here." She stood and walked out. Through the window, Amara watched her speak urgently with General Hartman in the hallway. He crossed his arms, shook his head. Torres kept talking, gesturing. He looked skeptical. Dr. Nakamura slid a business card across the table. "Whatever happens here," she said quietly, "you contact me. Understood?" Amara picked up the card, held it carefully. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. You just made some people very uncomfortable." Dr. Nakamura smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. And uncomfortable people don't always react well. Through the window, the general was still shaking his head. Torres pointed at something on her tablet. He frowned and looked toward the testing room, looked right at Amara. His expression didn't change. Amara felt her stomach tighten. She'd done everything right, answered every question, proven herself in front of witnesses, but she'd been here before, done everything right before, and still been told no. She stared at her reflection in the two-way mirror, wondering if anyone on the other side was watching, wondering if it even mattered. Amara sat alone in the testing room, staring at her reflection in the two-way mirror. Her face looked tired, older than 24. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. Worn edges, rubber band holding it together, pages filled with her handwriting, phonetic notes, phrases in a dozen different scripts, some smudged from being carried everywhere. She'd started this notebook at 16. Her mother had battled addiction for as long as Amara could remember. Her father was a name she'd never heard spoken aloud. At 6 years old, she entered the foster system. By 18, she'd lived in 11 different homes, most of them blurred together now. Different faces, different rules, different reasons she didn't belong, but she remembered Mrs. Duskovic, a Serbian woman who ran a tight house on the south side. Strict, but fair. She used to say, in her thick accent, "If you want to survive anywhere, you learn to speak to everyone." Amara had taken that seriously. She'd dropped out of community college after one semester. Couldn't afford the textbooks. Couldn't afford to not work 3 jobs. She tried call centers. Got fired for not sounding American enough. Tried grocery stores, warehouses. Nothing stuck. The military was supposed to be a last resort. A way out. A way forward. She'd been rejected twice before. Lack of qualifications, they'd said. Amara flipped through her notebook, stopped on a page near the middle. One line, written in Bosnian, Pamtichete po onome sto daješ, ne po onome sto imaš. Below it, in different handwriting, Mrs. Dushkovich's handwriting, the English translation, they'll remember you for what you give, not what you have. Amara traced the words with her finger. She wasn't here because she loved her country. She wasn't even sure her country loved her back. But she had a gift, and gifts didn't wait for perfect circumstances to matter. The door opened. Captain Torres stepped inside, her face unreadable. Amara closed the notebook quickly, slipped it back into her bag. "Come with me," Torres said. Amara stood, legs unsteady. She didn't know if she was about to be thanked or escorted out. She followed Torres into the hallway, into whatever came next. 2 days later, Amara sat at a cramped desk in a windowless office. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled like old coffee and printer toner. She'd been given a probationary position, specialist trainee. Captain Torres had explained it was unheard of. No one skipped the formal certification process. But here she was. The office door opened. A man in his 30s walked in, Asian American, with sharp eyes and sergeant stripes on his sleeve. He barely glanced at her. "Staff Sergeant Marcus Carter," he said flatly. He sat at the desk across from hers, opened his laptop. "Mandarin specialist." "Amara Bennett." "I know who you are." His tone made it clear what he thought about that. Another man entered, younger, early 20s, black, with a friendly face. "Private First Class Isaiah Grant, Arabic specialist." He smiled at her. "Don't mind Carter. He's like this with everyone," Chen muttered under his breath. "They're really scraping the bottom now." Isaiah shot him a look. "Man, come on." Amara set her notebook on the desk, ignored the comment. She'd heard worse. An hour later, Captain Torres walked in carrying a USB drive. "Audio files," she said, handing it to Amara. "Intercepted chatter, multiple languages. We need transcriptions by 0800 tomorrow." Chen looked up. "Captain, we've been stuck on file 7 for 3 days. The static alone..." "Then maybe Bennett will have better luck." Torres turned to Amara. "Do what you can." After she left, Carter leaned back in his chair. "Good luck with that. File 7's impossible." Amara plugged in the USB drive. Midnight. The office was nearly empty, just the hum of computers and the distant sound of boots in the hallway. Amara sat with headphones on, eyes closed. File 7 played on loop, overlapping voices, heavy static, crosstalk between 3 speakers. She rewound, listened again, rewound, again. Her pen moved across the page, fast and messy. Notes, phonetic spellings, question marks. Then she stopped, rewound to a specific 3-second segment, played it 5 times. Her eyes opened. She started typing. Morning light filtered through the high windows. Carter walked in with a thermos of coffee, rubbing his eyes. He stopped. Amara was asleep at her desk, head resting on her folded arms. Her screen was still on. He stepped closer, read what was displayed. File 7, complete. Transcription plus linguistic analysis. He scrolled. The impossible file. 3 speakers, 2 languages, Pashto and Urdu, coded slang, crosstalk that made the words nearly indecipherable. She hadn't just transcribed it. She'd identified the speakers' regional origins, estimated their ages, flagged a reference to a supply route, actionable intelligence. Chen stared at the screen, set down his coffee, gently shook her shoulder. "Hey, Bennett. Wake up." Amara lifted her head, groggy, blinked at him. "What time is it?" 06:30. He gestured at the screen. "How did you do this?" She rubbed her eyes. They were talking over each other, but one of them had a stutter. I isolated his cadence first, filtered out his voice pattern, then backfilled the other two. Isaiah walked in, saw them both staring at the screen. He leaned over Carter's shoulder to read. "No way." He looked at Amara. "Torres is going to lose her mind." Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, quieter than before, "You heard a stutter? Through that static?" Amara nodded. He just shook his head, picked up his coffee, and walked back to his desk. 30 minutes later, Captain Torres sat in her office, reading the file on her tablet. She picked up her phone. "Sir," she said, "we need to talk about Bennett." The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and floor polish. A long table stretched down the center. General Hartman sat at the head. Around him, a dozen officers in crisp uniforms. Amara sat in the back corner, the only person not in rank, the only one who didn't belong. A projector displayed her file on the screen. Name, age, education, incomplete. Certifications, none. D-Lab score, not applicable. Colonel Briggs stood at the front. White, 50s, gray hair cut military sharp. He clicked through slides with the kind of confidence that came from 30 years of never being questioned. "No degree," he said, voice clipped. "No certifications, no language aptitude test score." He turned to the general. "Sir, with all due respect, this sets a dangerous precedent. We have protocols for a reason." Major Kim, a Korean-American woman in her 40s, spoke up from across the table. "She passed our internal assessment, scored higher than 3 of our contract linguists." Briggs waved a hand dismissively. "Assessments can be gamed. What happens when she's in the field and chokes? We're betting soldiers' lives on a hobbyist." A few officers shifted uncomfortably. No one disagreed out loud. General Hartman leaned back in his chair, arms folded. His eyes flicked to Amara. "Bennett, you have something to say?" Every head turned. Amara felt her hands grip the edge of her chair. She kept her voice steady. "I don't do game tests, sir. I don't have that luxury. Every word I learn because I might need it to survive. That's not a hobby. That's a skill set." Briggs scoffed. "Survive? This isn't the streets, Bennett. This is military intelligence. Lives depend on precision, on credentials, on—" "Colonel!" General Hartman's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Enough!" Silence. Hartman's eyes were hard. "I've spent 30 years in this uniform. I've watched people with perfect resumes crumble under pressure. I've watched people with nothing prove everyone wrong." He paused. "Bennett stays. Next item." Briggs's jaw tightened. He gathered his papers, sat down stiffly. Major Kim caught Amara's eye across the room, gave her the smallest nod. When the meeting ended, officers filed out in silence. Amara stayed seated, unsure if she was dismissed. Captain Torres appeared beside her. "Walk with me," she said quietly. They stepped into the hallway. Fluorescent lights stretched down the empty corridor. Their footsteps echoed. "You made an enemy today," Torres said, not unkindly. "I've had worse." Torres stopped, turned to face her. "Briggs has pulled. He's got friends in procurement, in oversight, in places that matter. He doesn't forget." She paused. "Watch your back." Amara nodded. Torres reached into her jacket, pulled out a laminated badge. "Hold it out." Amara took it, stared. Her photo, her name, and below it, linguistic specialist, probationary. "You're official now," Torres said. "Don't make me regret this." Amara looked at the badge. 2 ounces of plastic. but it was the first time in her life anyone had bet on her and signed their name to it. "I won't, ma'am." Torres studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Good. Report to the operations center at 0600 tomorrow. We've got real work." She walked away, boots clicking down the hall. Amara stood there alone, holding the badge. Through the glass window of the conference room, she could see Colonel Briggs talking to another officer. He glanced her way. His expression was cold. She slipped the badge into her pocket and walked in the opposite direction. 3 weeks later, Amara stepped into the Secure Operations Center for the first time. Rows of monitors glowed in the dim room. Operators sat at terminals, headsets on, voices low and urgent. Captain Torres waved her over. "We need you, now." On the main screen, live drone feed. A compound somewhere overseas, grainy and gray. A tactical team, call sign Viper 6, was on standby. "They intercepted radio chatter 20 minutes ago," Torres said, handing Amara a headset. "Can't decipher it. Lives depend on this." General Hartman stood near the back of the room, arms crossed. Watching. Colonel Briggs was there too. He leaned against the wall, arms folded, skeptical. A voice crackled over the speaker, a contract linguist, calling in remotely. "It's a dialect I don't recognize. Could be Balochi, maybe a Pamir language, but I can't—" "It's Waki," Amara said. The room went quiet. Briggs straightened. "How can you possibly know that?" Amara didn't look away from the screen. She listened to the audio feed playing through her headset. Wind noise. A vehicle engine in the background. Rapid, angry voices. "The vowel shift in yar and the retroflex consonants," she said. "It's Waki, Pamir Mountain region. Give me 30 seconds. Torres gestured sharply. "Everyone is quiet." Amara closed her eyes. Listened. Her pen moved across the notepad. The voices overlapped. One man was shouting, another responding, calmer, a third in the background. She scribbled faster, then stopped, rewound the audio in her head. "They're saying the shipment moves at dawn." She paused. "No, wait. Dawn isn't a time reference. It's a name. A call sign. They're talking about a person, not a schedule." Captain Torres grabbed the radio. "Viper 6, confirm. Target is mobile. Repeat. The target is mobile, not stationary." The field commander's voice crackled back. "Copy. Adjusting intercept route." On the screen, the drone feed shifted. The team moved away from the compound, repositioning toward a narrow mountain road. 10 minutes later, a convoy of 3 vehicles appeared on screen. The team intercepted. No shots fired. Clean capture. The operations center erupted in controlled activity. Voices overlapping. Screens updating. Torres let out a breath. She turned to Amara. "If we'd raided that compound, we'd have come up empty and blown the entire operation." General Hartman stepped forward. His face was unreadable. He looked at Amara for a long moment. "Bennett," he said quietly. "Good work." He extended his hand. Amara shook it. Firm. Brief. Across the room, Colonel Briggs said nothing. He stared at the screen, jaw tight. Then he turned and left. One of the operators, a young guy with a buzz cut, looked over his shoulder at Amara. "Nice call, specialist." Another nodded. "Seriously. That was clutch." Amara sat down, legs suddenly weak. Her notebook was still in her hand. A drop of sweat had fallen on the page, smudging the ink. Captain Torres leaned against the desk beside her. "You just saved 17 soldiers from walking into nothing. You know that, right?" Amara nodded, but didn't trust herself to speak. Torres patted her shoulder once, then walked back to her station. At that moment, Amara Bennett wasn't a dropout, wasn't a probationary hire. She was the reason 17 people were coming home safe tonight. She looked down at her notebook, at the smudged ink. In the words she'd written in 3 different scripts. She'd been right. And for once, being right had been enough. The next morning, Amara received a message. Report to General Hartman's office at 0900. Her stomach dropped. She'd been summoned to offices before. It never ended well. At 9 sharp, she knocked on the door. Solid wood, a nameplate in brass. Enter. The office was smaller than she'd expected. Walls lined with commendations, photos of units in desert fatigues. Morning light filtered through blinds. General Hartman sat behind his desk. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit, please. Amara sat on the edge of the seat, back straight. He poured 2 cups of coffee from a carafe, slid one across the desk. You drink coffee? Yes, sir. Good. It's terrible, but it's hot. He took a sip, set the cup down. I owe you an apology. Amara blinked. Sir? That first day. The phone. The Arabic text. He met her eyes. I was testing you, but I was also dismissing you. That was wrong. She didn't know what to say. Hartman leaned back in his chair. 30 years ago, I was a green lieutenant, cocky, thought I knew everything. He paused. My platoon sergeant was a black man from Louisiana. Never finished high school, grew up picking cotton with his grandmother. He looked out the window. Mogadishu, 1993. I made a call that almost got 6 men killed. He countermanded my order. Saved my life. Saved all of us. His voice was quiet. Not because of his training. Because he understood people. He heard things I didn't. Hartman turned back to her. I never forgot that. And I never forgave myself for almost not listening. He opened a folder on his desk. Slide it toward her. I'm recommending you for Accelerated Specialist Certification. Full rank. Full benefits. You'll be assigned to Joint Task Force Operations. High clearance. Real responsibility. Amara stared at the folder. Didn't touch it. Captain Torres agrees, Hartman continued. So does Major Kim. Dr. Nakamura sent a letter. She called you the most naturally gifted linguist she's tested in 2 decades. Amara's hands trembled slightly. She pressed them flat against her thighs. Why me? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Because you earned it. Hartman's tone was firm. And because we can't afford to waste people like you. He reached into his desk drawer, pulled out something small, set it on the desk between them. A challenge coin. Military tradition. Given to honor exceptional service. On one side, the unit insignia. On the other, her name, engraved. And a date, the night of the field operation. You're one of us now, he said. Amara picked up the coin. It was heavier than she expected. Solid. Real. Her throat tightened. She blinked hard, willing herself not to cry in front of a 3-star general. Thank you, sir. Hartman stood. She stood with him. Don't thank me yet, he said. The work gets harder from here, and Briggs isn't going anywhere. I understand, sir. He walked her to the door, opened it. Bennett? She turned. That sergeant I told you about? His name was William Harris. He's the reason I'm still here. Hartman paused. Don't let anyone make you small. You hear me? Yes, sir. Amara walked out, the coin tight in her fist. That evening, Amara sat alone in the mess hall. Her tray held food she wasn't really tasting. She kept turning the challenge coin over in her fingers. The engraving caught the light. Footsteps approached. Mind if I sit? Isaiah Grant stood there with his tray, smiling. Amara gestured to the seat across from her. Go ahead. He sat down, glanced at the coin in her hand. His eyes widened. Whoa, Hartman gave you that? She nodded. Do you know what this means? Isaiah grinned. You're officially a unicorn. Probationary to challenge coins in 6 weeks? That's unheard of. Amara smiled. The first real smile in days. Feels like I'm dreaming. Nah, dreams don't come with Colonel Briggs glaring at you across the office. They both laughed. It felt good, easy. Isaiah leaned back. I grew up in Detroit. My dad was in the Army, 20 years, but he didn't want me to enlist. He poked at his food. Said I was too smart for this, that I should go to college, get a real job. Why'd you join anyway? Because I wanted to prove I could serve and use my brain. People act like it's one or the other. He shrugged. Like you can't be smart and still want to be part of something bigger. I get that, Amara said quietly. Another set of footsteps. Marcus Carter set his tray down at their table. Isaiah looked surprised. So did Amara. Chen sat without asking. He looked directly at her. Bennett, I was wrong about you. I was wrong. She waited. That Waki translation? I've been doing this for 8 years. I wouldn't have caught that. Not in 1,000 tries. He extended his hand across the table. Fresh start? Amara shook it. Fresh start. The three of them ate in comfortable silence for a moment. Around them, the mess hall buzzed with low conversation. Someone laughed across the room. Trays clattered. It was loud and chaotic and normal. For the first time since she'd arrived, Amara didn't feel like an outsider. Isaiah noticed her notebook sitting on the table. What's that? She flipped it open, showed him a page covered in phonetic notes, a phrase in Tagalog. Isaiah squinted, tried to read it aloud. Ang taong walang... I can't even pronounce this. Amara smiled. It's a Filipino proverb. Ang taong walang kibo, nasa loob ang kulo. It means, a person who's silent has a storm inside. Chen looked at her. That's you. Amara shook her head. Used to be. For years, she'd been silent because she thought no one was listening. But now she was learning something new. Being heard wasn't about speaking louder. It was about finding people who already knew how to listen. 2 months later, Amara's phone rang at 5 in the morning. Captain Torres. Get dressed. Your wheel's up in 30 minutes. Ma'am? International Summit. The State Department's lead interpreter just got food poisoning. Backups stuck in Dallas. Flight delayed. You're it. Amara's heart slammed against her ribs. A summit? Captain, I've never... You have now. Helicopter's waiting. 20 minutes later, Amara sat in a Black Hawk, the rotor noise drowning out everything else. Wind whipped through the open door. Below, the city sprawled out in early morning gray. She clutched her notebook, tried to steady her breathing. They landed on the roof of a luxury hotel downtown. Diplomatic security met her. 2 agents in dark suits and earpieces. They walked her through a maze of hallways, thick carpet, gold fixtures. Everything smelled like expensive cologne and fresh flowers. Captain Torres was waiting outside the conference room. So was General Hartman. And Colonel Briggs. Torres handed her a tablet. 7 delegations, Afghanistan, Pakistan, South Korea, Russia, and 3 others. Multilateral peace talks, high stakes. You'll be doing consecutive interpretation, translation after each speaker finishes, no margin for error. Amara scrolled through the briefing notes. Her hands were shaking. This is public, Torres continued. Recorded, scrutinized by international media. Everything you say will be analyzed. Briggs stepped closer. His voice was low, almost a whisper. Hope you're ready for the big leagues, Bennett. One mistake and you're done. And so is everyone who vouched for you. Amara looked at him, said nothing. General Hartman put a hand on her shoulder. You've got this. She nodded, throat tight. Inside the conference room, cameras lined the back wall. Diplomats in tailored suits sat around a massive table. Flags from 7 nations hung on the walls. The air was heavy with tension. Amara took her seat at a small desk to the side. A microphone in front of her. Everyone could see her. Everyone could hear her. The moderator, a U.S. diplomat in his 60s, opened the session. "We'll begin with the Afghan delegation." An elderly man stood, gray beard, deep-set eyes. He spoke in Pashto, his voice cracking with emotion. Amara closed her eyes, listened. He was talking about civilian casualties, about children, about villages destroyed. When he finished, the room turned to her. Amara opened her eyes, spoke into the microphone. She didn't just translate his words, she carried his grief. The way his voice had broken, the pauses where he'd struggled to continue. The room went still. The Afghan delegate looked at her, nodded once, slowly. Next, the Russian envoy. Middle-aged, sharp suit, sharper eyes. He spoke rapidly in Russian, interrupting the Afghan delegate's point. His tone was aggressive. Amara translated. Matched his urgency but softened the hostility just slightly. Interpretation as mediation. The Russian envoy leaned back, nodded. She'd gotten it right. The South Korean representative spoke next. Technical jargon, economic terms, statistics delivered rapid fire. Amara kept pace. Halfway through, the delegate misstated a figure, said 15 million instead of 50 million. Amara paused, leaned toward him, whispered in Korean. He blinked, corrected himself. 50 million. My apologies. He nodded to her. Thank you. The session continued. Amara translated for an hour straight. Her voice stayed steady, but her shirt was damp with sweat. Then the Pakistani delegate began speaking in Urdu. Mid-sentence, he switched to Punjabi. The other interpreters, feeding translations to the press via earpieces, froze. Confusion rippled through the room. Amara didn't miss a beat. She switched with him. Translated both. General Hartman stood near the back, arms folded. He leaned toward Torres. She's not just interpreting. She's holding the room together. Then it happened. The Russian envoy interrupted the Afghan delegate. Both men started speaking at once, voices rising, angry, talking over each other. The moderator raised his hand. "Gentlemen, please." They didn't stop. Amara stood. The room went silent. She looked at both men. Spoke first in Pashto, then in Russian. Her voice was calm but carried authority. "Gentlemen, you both want peace. I've listened to you for an hour. You agree on more than you realize. Let me show you." She recapped their arguments, not word for word. She pulled out the threads, the points of agreement buried under rhetoric and pride. In Pashto, then Russian, then English for the rest of the room. The Afghan delegate stared at her, then slowly nodded. The Russian envoy leaned back in his chair, reassessing. The South Korean representative spoke in English, voice filled with surprise. "Who is this interpreter?" The moderator cleared his throat. "Specialist Amara Bennett, U.S. Military Linguistics." The session continued. Productive now. The tension had broken. 2 hours later, the summit concluded with a tentative agreement to reconvene in 30 days. As delegates filed out, several approached Amara. The Afghan delegate spoke to her in Pashto. "You honored my words. Thank you." The Russian envoy, in accented English. "You are formidable, Miss Bennett." A journalist called out from the press section. "Specialist Bennett, can we get your name for the record?" The camera flashes. Captain Torres stepped in, waved them off. "No interviews, thank you." In the hallway, Colonel Briggs walked past. He stopped, looked at Amara. "That was exemplary work, Bennett." His voice was stiff, forced. "Thank you, sir." He walked away without another word. Torres grinned. "You just made him eat a year's worth of crow." General Hartman approached. "You commanded that room. You know that?" Amara exhaled slowly. I just did what was needed, sir. No. His voice was firm. You did what no one else could. On the helicopter ride back, Amara stared out at the city below. The sun was setting now, painting everything gold. She thought about that testing room 2 months ago, the skeptical looks, the whispers. She thought about Colonel Briggs holding up his phone, mocking her. And she thought about how she'd just stood in front of 7 nations and made them listen. In that room, she hadn't just translated languages. She'd translated hope. And everyone who doubted her had to swallow their words in 7 different languages. 1 week later, the base auditorium was packed. Rows of soldiers in dress uniforms, civilian staff in the back, a small press contingent, 3 reporters with cameras and notepads. Amara stood backstage, hands clasped behind her back. Her dress uniform was crisp, newly issued. She'd never worn it before. The fabric felt stiff, foreign. The metal bar above her pocket caught the light. Captain Torres appeared beside her. Are you nervous? Terrified. Torres smiled. Good. Means you care. She adjusted Amara's collar, smoothed a wrinkle. You earned this. Don't forget that. Through the curtain, Amara could hear the low hum of conversation. Chair scraping. Someone is coughing. Her stomach twisted. The auditorium lights dimmed. A voice over the loudspeaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of colors. The crowd stood. The national anthem played. Amara's heart pounded in her chest like a drum beat. When the music ended, the same voice called, Specialist Amara Bennett, front and center. Amara walked onto the stage. The lights were blinding. She couldn't see faces, just shapes in the audience, hundreds of them. She forced herself to breathe. In, out, in. At the center of the stage stood General Hartman, Captain Torres, Major Kim, and a row of senior officers she didn't recognize, all in dress blues, all watching her. General Hartman stepped to the podium. The room went absolutely quiet. Today, he began, his voice carrying across the auditorium, we recognize not just skill, but character. A screen behind him lit up. Amara's official photo, her name in bold white letters beneath it. She barely recognized herself in the picture, stiff, unsmiling, formal. Specialist Amara Bennett came to us with no credentials, no formal training, no connections. He paused, let the words sit. What she had was a gift, and the courage to offer it when we needed it most. He clicked a remote. The screen changed. Statistics, charts, a map with 17 pins marking locations. In the past 3 months, Specialist Bennett has contributed to 17 successful operations across 4 theaters. Her linguistic analysis has been cited in 4 classified intelligence reports. Her field translations have directly resulted in the safety of over 50 personnel. The audience murmured, shifting in seats, whispers. Hartman continued. 2 weeks ago, she represented the United States at an international summit. She was given 0 notice, 0 preparation time. She interpreted for 7 delegations in 4 languages simultaneously. And according to the State Department, he looked down at his notes. She may have single-handedly prevented a diplomatic breakdown. Someone in the back started clapping. Others joined, scattered applause building. Hartman raised a hand. The room quieted again. But more than that, he said, his voice softer now, almost intimate. She's reminded us that talent doesn't always come in the packages we expect. That the resume isn't the person. That we have a duty, a moral duty, to recognize excellence when it shows up, even if it doesn't look like what we're used to. He turned to Amara. His expression was serious, formal. Specialist Bennett, front and center. Amara stepped forward. Her legs felt like they might give out. Her hands trembled at her sides. Hartman held up a small blue velvet box, opened it with a soft click. Inside, a medal. bronze star suspended from red, white, and blue ribbon. It gleamed under the stage lights. "The Defense Meritorious Service Medal," he announced, loud enough for every person in the room to hear. "This is rarely awarded to someone of your rank and tenure, but rarely has someone earned it so decisively, so quickly, and with such impact." He stepped closer, lifted the medal from the box. Amara stood perfectly still as he pinned it to her uniform, just above her heart. His hands were steady, practiced. He'd done this 100 times before. But when he finished, he leaned in close, whispered just loud enough for the front row to hear. "You've earned this, and everything that comes next. Don't let anyone tell you differently." He stepped back, snapped a crisp salute. Amara returned it, throat so tight she could barely breathe. The room erupted. Applause, loud, sustained, genuine. People stood, row after row rising to their feet. Some were clapping, some were smiling. A few wiped their eyes. Amara blinked hard, refused to cry on stage. Hartman gestured to the microphone. "Specialist Bennett has prepared a few words." Amara stepped to the podium. The microphone was too high. She adjusted it down, hands shaking so badly she almost knocked it over. She looked out at the sea of faces, hundreds of eyes on her, waiting. She took a breath. "I don't have an inspiring story about always knowing my path," she began. Her voice sounded small, thin in the vast space. "I spent most of my life being told I didn't belong anywhere. I believed it for a long time." She paused, reached into her pocket, pulled out her old notebook, the one with the rubber band, the smudged pages, the worn cover, held it up so everyone could see. "This is everything I know, every word, every phrase, every mistake I made while learning." Her voice was steadier now, stronger. "I carried this because I didn't have anything else to carry. No diplomas, no certificates, just this." She looked at General Hartman, then Captain Torres, then Major Kim, then back at the audience. "But someone saw it. Someone looked past what I didn't have and saw what I did. And they decided it was enough." The room was absolutely silent now. Not even a cough, not even a whisper. "To everyone here who's ever felt like you don't fit the mold," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "you don't need to. The mold is breaking. The rules are changing. Just bring what you have. Bring everything you are, and find people who see it." She stepped back from the microphone. The applause came again, louder this time, longer. Someone whistled. Someone else shouted, "Hoo-ah!" Amara walked off stage, legs shaking, heart pounding. In the wings, Dr. Yuki Nakamura was waiting. The linguist from her very first test, the woman who'd slid her business card across the table months ago. Dr. Nakamura stepped forward and hugged her, breaking protocol completely, but warm and tight and real. "I told you to contact me if you needed anything," she said, pulling back, hands on Amara's shoulders. "You didn't need to." Amara smiled, eyes wet. "I didn't want to disappoint you." "Impossible." Dr. Nakamura's voice cracked. "I am so very proud of you." In the hallway outside, Isaiah and Marcus were waiting, both in dress uniforms, both grinning like idiots. Marcus held out a package wrapped in plain brown paper, tied with string. "What's this?" "Just open it," Isaiah said. Amara unwrapped it carefully, pulling the string loose. Inside, a leather-bound notebook. Genuine leather, soft and supple. Nicer than anything she'd ever owned. Her initials were embossed on the cover in gold lettering, A.B. "For the next chapter," Isaiah said quietly. She opened the first page. A group photo was taped inside, the three of them in the mess hall, mid-laugh, relaxed and real. Below it, in Marcus's neat handwriting, "Ang taong walang kibo, nasa loob ang kulo, but storms can also build bridges, MC and IG." Amara pressed her hand to her mouth. Tears came now, hot and fast. She didn't stop them. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus shrugged, embarrassed. "It's just a notebook." "It's not." Amara's voice was firm. "It's not just a notebook." Isaiah pulled her into a hug. Marcus joined a second later. The three of them stood there in the empty hallway, holding on. A voice interrupted. "Excuse me, Specialist Bennett?" They pulled apart. A young woman stood there, mid-20s, holding a recorder and a notepad. Press credentials hung around her neck. "I'm Rachel Kim with the Tribune," she said respectfully. "Would you be willing to do an interview? People are going to want to know your story." Amara hesitated, looked at Isaiah, then Marcus, then back at the reporter. "Only if it helps someone else believe their story matters too." Rachel smiled. "I think it will. I really think it will." That night, Amara sat alone in her quarters. Small room, single bed, metal locker, a desk bolted to the wall. But it was hers. Her name was on the door. She placed the medal on her desk, next to the challenge coin General Hartman had given her months ago. 2 pieces of metal side by side. She stared at them for a long time. 2 pieces of metal. But they represented something she'd spent 24 years chasing. Something she'd stopped believing she deserved. Proof that she mattered. Proof that she was enough. She opened the new leather notebook. The pages were clean, blank, waiting. She ran her hand across the first page. It was smooth, unmarked. She picked up a pen, wrote in careful script, "Day 1. Again." Because recognition was strange. You spent your whole life fighting to be seen, clawing for validation. And then when you finally were seen, really seen, you realized something. The real work was never about proving yourself. It was about becoming someone who could lift others the way you'd needed to be lifted. Amara closed the notebook, set it beside the medal. Turn off the light. Tomorrow, the work will start again. New missions, new challenges, new people who would doubt her, test her, underestimate her. But tonight, she let herself feel it. The weight of the medal on her chest, the warmth of her friends' arms around her, the sound of hundreds of people clapping for her. Tonight, she let herself believe she'd earned it. And for the first time in her life, that belief didn't feel fragile or temporary. It felt solid, real, unshakable, true. 6 months later. Amara stood at the front of a classroom. 20 recruits sat in rows, notebooks open, pens ready. Young faces, nervous energy. She recognized that look, the uncertainty, the hope, the fear of not being enough. She was teaching Introduction to Field Linguistics now, part of the new Accelerated Specialist program. "Phonetic transcription isn't about perfection," she said, writing on the whiteboard. "It's about capturing what you hear as accurately as possible in the moment." A young woman in the second row, black, early 20s, raised her hand tentatively. "Yes?" "Ma'am, what if we miss something important?" Amara set down the marker. "Then you rewind. You listen again. You don't give up just because it's hard the first time." She paused. "Most of you are here because someone saw potential in you. Don't waste that. And when it's your turn, when you see that spark in someone else, don't ignore it." After class, Amara walked across the base. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. DoD expands linguistic specialist recruitment. Credentials no longer mandatory. She stopped. Read it again. The article quoted General Hartman, mentioned her by name. Change was slow, but it was happening. She continued walking toward the recruitment processing building, the same one where this had all started. Inside, the waiting area was full. Dozens of people filling out forms. Amara's eyes landed on a young black woman sitting alone, early 20s, worn jacket, nervous hands. Amara walked over, sat beside her. "First time?" The woman was startled. Yes, ma'am. I'm Amara. Keisha. You look nervous, Amara said gently. Keisha laughed, anxious. I'm scared they'll think I'm not qualified. I didn't finish college, no certifications. What can you do? Keisha hesitated. I speak 4 languages, self-taught. Spanish, Haitian Creole, Mandarin, and Arabic. She paused. It sounds stupid. It's not stupid. Amara pulled out a business card, handed it to her. If anyone gives you a hard time, you call me. Keisha stared at the card. You're Specialist Bennett, from the article. Just Bennett. And you're going to be fine. How do you know? Because you're already ahead. You just don't realize it yet. A voice called from the doorway. Keisha Thompson? Keisha stood, gripping the card, looked at Amara. Thank you. Show them what you've got. Keisha walked toward the door, shoulders straighter. Amara watched her go, walked outside into the cold air. She thought about that day 6 months ago. The humiliation. The phone held out of reach. The laughter. She thought about every foster home that hadn't wanted her, every job that fired her, every person who decided she wasn't enough before she opened her mouth. And she thought about General Hartman's apology. Captain Torres believes in her. Isaiah and Marcus becoming family. But most of all, she thought about Keisha. And all the others waiting in rooms like that one, wondering if anyone would see them. Talent wasn't rare. It never had been. It was just unrecognized, overlooked, dismissed. And recognition didn't start with policy changes. It started with one person saying, I see you. What you have matters. Here's what matters now. Tomorrow, look around. At work, on the train, in line at the store. Notice the person no one's noticing. Ask them their story. You might be standing next to someone who changes everything, and they're waiting for someone to ask. If this story moved you, share it. Comment with someone you know who's been underestimated. Organizations are creating scholarship programs right now for people with unconventional skills. If you have a gift the world hasn't recognized, there are people ready to invest in you. Your story isn't over. Your gift isn't waiting for credentials. It's waiting for someone brave enough to see it.